They'll call you distant, cold, even arrogant. But the truth is, you didn't choose to walk alone. The path chose you. And not because you're hard to love, but because your love burns too bright for the world to handle all at once. The chosen ones walk alone, not because they're empty, but because they're full of purpose, of power, of a divine knowing that not everyone is supposed to understand. And if you feel like you're in a season of isolation right now, this message is for you. Because your loneliness is not punishment, it's preparation. From an early age, something felt different. You could be in a room full of people, laughing, moving, buzzing with life, and still feel completely unseen. But you weren't invisible. You were just spiritually set apart. You weren't born to blend in. You were born to illuminate. And people don't always know what to do with that kind of light, that kind of presence, that kind of energy. So life pushed you into solitude. Conversations started feeling empty. Connections stopped making sense. You began withdrawing not because you stopped caring, but because you couldn't fake the energy anymore. You couldn't force yourself to fit into spaces your spirit had outgrown. And that's when the silence got louder. That's when you realized this walk, this lonely uphill climb, was not just about survival. It was about revelation, about becoming who you were always meant to be, stripped of all distractions. And it hurts, doesn't it? That slow unraveling, that shedding of old friends, old patterns, old ways of thinking. You started to see through the masks, through the performance, through the noise. And for a while, it felt like maybe you were the problem. But the truth is, you were evolving. And evolution demands separation. It's not that you're too good for others. It's that you were called to something deeper, something sacred, something unshakable. And the deeper you went spiritually, the quieter your world became. Because spiritual elevation doesn't just lift you up, it pulls you away. From crowds, from chaos, from comfort. People around you didn't understand why you stopped showing up, why you started saying no more often, why your energy changed. But you weren't rejecting them. You were accepting yourself, accepting the mission, the calling, the divine echo inside your soul that kept whispering. You weren't meant to stay where you started. The chosen ones are often mistaken for loners. But in truth, they're leaders in disguise, spiritual warriors being trained in the shadows. And their power doesn't come from the validation of others. It comes from the fire they build within. Every moment of silence, every tear, every unanswered question. It was all refining you. Because the ones who walk alone are not truly alone. They walk with wisdom, with vision, with divine protection, with clarity. And while the world sleeps on them, the heavens move for them. You started noticing your energy would shift rooms. People would stare, not always with admiration, sometimes with confusion, sometimes with envy, because your very presence began to reveal the things they were trying to hide. Your authenticity became a mirror, your honesty a spotlight, your calm a threat to their chaos. And you tried to dim it. You tried to shrink, to be less intense, more likable, more normal. But every time you did, you felt your spirit ache. Because deep down, you knew you weren't born to play small. You were born to walk paths most people can't even see. And the price of that clarity is solitude. But not forever. Because what you're building in the quiet, the world will one day hear. The pain of walking alone is real, but so is the transformation that comes with it. When there's no one to lean on, you learn to lean into the divine. When there's no applause, you learn to listen for alignment. When there's no comfort, you find power in the discomfort. You become untouchable, not because nothing can hurt you, but because you no longer depend on external validation to define your worth. That's why chosen ones are hard to manipulate, hard to gaslight, hard to break. Because they've already walked through the wilderness alone and survived the silence. They've already questioned everything and found truth in their own soul. And that truth, that unwavering inner knowing, becomes their compass. By now, you've probably noticed that people come into your life with intensity and leave with confusion. They're drawn to your light, but unprepared for the responsibility that light demands, because your energy doesn't just comfort, it convicts. And not everyone is ready to be seen at that level. You see, when you carry a high spiritual frequency, it's not just about positivity or love and light. It's about truth. It's about exposing darkness, dismantling illusions, and carrying a level of accountability that most people run from. That's why many can't stay. Your silence says more than their shouting ever could. It's not personal. It's energetic. Because chosen ones don't just attract people, they awaken people. And not everyone wants to wake up. You've been positioned in such a way that you can't even fake your old life anymore. It's like every time you try to go back, the universe blocks it. Every attempt to settle leads to chaos. Every time you try to water yourself down, life dries you up. Because your path is not backward. It's forward, even if forward means walking it alone. There's a sacred loneliness that comes with being chosen, a divine tension, a stretching that feels like breaking, but is actually strengthening. Because God doesn't hide power in the crowd. He hides it in isolation. And when He isolates you, it's not rejection. It's redirection. He's pulling you out so He can pour into you. And the pouring doesn't happen all at once. It comes in waves, in whispers, in moments of clarity when you least expect it. You'll feel it when you're staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering why no one calls anymore. You'll feel it when you walk into a room and immediately sense what's unspoken. You'll feel it when you hear a random song or see a stranger's eyes and suddenly feel like heaven is speaking directly to you. That's divine communication. That's how you know you're not walking alone. You're walking with angels. This path is not for the faint of heart. That's why the crowd isn't allowed. That's why your circle got smaller. That's why your phone stopped ringing. Because the fewer distractions you have, the clearer you hear God, the clearer you see yourself. And when you truly see yourself, you stop begging for crumbs. Chosen ones stop chasing once they realize what they carry. They stop explaining, stop proving, stop performing. Because when you're anchored in your calling, noise doesn't move you, silence doesn't scare you, and solitude doesn't break you. It builds you. So yes, you walk alone, but you walk with power, with presence, with purpose. People will start noticing. The same ones who left, who doubted, who misunderstood you. They'll circle back, trying to figure out how you did it, how you glowed up without their support, how you stayed strong when the world turned cold. But they'll never understand that your strength came from surrender, not from fighting harder, but from trusting deeper. Trusting that your pain had a purpose, that your isolation had intelligence, that your silence was sacred. The chosen walk alone, not because they're better than others, but because they're burdened with vision. And vision requires stillness, obedience, discipline, and a faith that doesn't crumble when the path gets quiet. The ones who walk alone hear heaven the loudest. So now you're here, not where you started, not where you expected to be, but exactly where you were destined to arrive. Alone, but not lonely. Isolated, but more in tune than ever. You're beginning to realize this journey wasn't about being left behind. It was about being positioned ahead, not in pride, but in purpose. There's a new power rising in you now, a quiet boldness. You don't need to announce yourself. Your presence speaks volumes. You don't need to argue. Your aura confirms what words never could. You're walking with a knowing now, a sacred confidence, the kind only earned through silence, storms, and spiritual warfare. Because chosen ones go through battles no one sees, internal wars, emotional purging, energetic shifts, and while the world thinks you're just quiet or different, you've been out here transmuting pain into power, grief into growth, isolation into insight, and now you're unstoppable. You've learned how to sit with yourself, how to hear your own thoughts without flinching, how to face your wounds without running. You've developed spiritual muscles that most people don't even know exist. And because of that, you can no longer be fooled by surface-level connections, by empty words, by fake alliances. You see through everything now. You move with precision. You speak with intention. You walk with alignment. Your energy no longer entertains confusion. You'd rather be alone than surrounded by noise. You'd rather walk in silence than dance in dysfunction. And that is your power. That is your edge. That is why you're feared and revered, often at the same time. So don't resist the loneliness. Don't curse the solitude. Let it mold you. Let it sharpen you. Because the time is coming when the world will need what you've built in secret, when your voice will be called upon, when your clarity will become someone else's confirmation.